See if we can do it that way.
You guys gonna be in New York or
Miami? Miami. I'm going to Miami. Wow, I'm going to Miami. And you're not going to be there. Okay. We saw this absolutely astounding idea on Thursday in Shin Chaf Vav, where the Rebbe explains that the source of the Gimel Madregas of Or that we've been learning about are Mamale, or Seviv, and Etzem Ha'or, those three levels of light. Those three levels of light, their source is the three different levels of Avos Hashem, V'yahavta b'chol levavcho, u'b'chol nafshcho, u'b'chol miyadecho. The Rebbe explained, I wouldn't say at length, but the Rebbe explained those different levels and how they're shayach to both Mamale, that's the Chol Levavcha, Nefesh Bahamis, Sevev, that's Chol Nafshecha, that a person wants to be elevated and enveloped in the infinite light, that's the Mysticism Nefesh, and go beyond their physical existence. B'chol Me'adecho, a level without any limitation whatsoever. That's an absolutely astounding idea, absolutely astounding. But as we mentioned, there is another place where the Rebbe talks about something similar. He doesn't go as far as we went here, but he talks in Chaf Av Tafshin Chaf Zayin Ate Echad, I think it's called. Anyways, it's actually might check this. In here, it might even be a melukat. Hey, hold on, might be in the same melukat. So it's a melukat mind. So there the Rebbe talks about, and we mentioned this, just I'm throwing it out again. No, it's not there. Vata Yisrael. No, never mind. There the Rebbe talks about the fact that Seviv and Mamale, their source is the Seichel and Ratzon of us. The fact that there are two levels in us, Seichel and Ratzon, meaning a level of Panemius and a level of Makif. So too in Elokus, there are two levels. There's a level of Panemius or Mamale and a level of Makif or Seviv. Here the Rebbe is even including Etzem Or. And it's really quite an astounding idea. Because generally, again, we mentioned this all on Thursday, but it has to be emphasized that in Chassidus, generally we talk about levels of Elokus, and then we say, and those levels are expressed in this Avodah, this Avodah, this Avodah. Here the Rebbe is saying exactly the opposite. There are levels of Avodah, and those levels of Avodah are expressed in these levels of Elokus and these levels of Elokus. In other words, the levels of Elokus come as a result of the Avodah. Why is that? Because the Avodah, what's the Avodah? So to put it in as simple terms as can possibly be said, so Avodah is, so to speak, Ratzon Atzmus. Where does the source of our Avodah come from? Atzmus, Kadosh Baruch Hu, B'chveda B'atzmai, wants something called Avodah. Why? We're a taiva for dir b'tachtenim through our Avodah, and that's all happening in Atzmus. And that means that every single level of reality outside of Atzmus exists as part of the desire to bring about that Avodah. Right? As lofty and as transcendent as those levels might be, but they exist solely to bring out, ultimately, to be part of a reality that will eventually end up down here in Eilam Hazeh with all of the concealment in Eilam Hazeh to allow for Avodah Zarah. So why does the Etzem Ha'or exist? And we've talked about this a number of times in this Ma'aser, and it's so important to understand. Etzem Ha'or does not exist because it has to. Etzem Ha'or exists because Kadosh Baruch Hu wants it to. Right? No matter the loftiest, most amazing levels of godly reality are not what's called in Chassidus mechuyev hametzias, necessary existence. They exist because the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants them to. In other words, Atzmos could decide laha'ir, to be a source of light, or lo la'ir, or not to be a source of light. Now, obviously, in order for you and I to be here, there has to be or. Okay, we've said, but who says we have to be here? I mean, certainly we don't understand. We certainly understand relative to the physical world that that's a function of the Eibishter's will, and it doesn't have to be that there's a world if the Eibishter doesn't want a world. So the world will disappear. There's no world. Okay, that's. I don't think anybody has a hard time understanding that idea. Once you understand, there's someone called God. Okay, but what's really astounding, and Chassidus talks about this a lot, is the highest levels of godly reality that you and I talk about are also just expression. They're called gilui, they're called revelation, and not etzem, not essential being. Therefore, interesting enough, the Rebbe Rashab calls them ayin, relative to yesh amiti. Yesh amiti, true being, has to be. We'll talk about this when we get a little further in the mind. There was emes and emes lamite, but emes, what does emes mean? Generally, emes would mean bli gvul, unlimited. Right? Emes lamite means it has to be. There is no other reality. Okay, so we call atzmos emes lamite, absolute emes. Right? There is no possibility of it not being. Interesting enough, when we talk about or, emes. It's emes. It's bli gvul. It's not emes. It's choshev, not sheker. It's emes. But it doesn't have to be. It's theoretically possible that the Amish decides there's no such level. Okay. He didn't decide that. He decided there should be a level. But why did he decide there should be such a level of elokus? And we're talking even about etzem ha'od, the highest level of godly light. Why did the Amish want there to be such a level of godly light? Ultimately, because that's part of a process that will eventually lead to something called the Veda Sata. That's what he means. Therefore, the source of it all is the Veda Sata. That's what we learned in the beginning of tests. Now, I think we started Tzarech Lahavi. We didn't finish it though, right?
We started with
right. We started, right. So let's just start there again. We'll go through that quickly, and our goal is to get to Yud Aleph today, right? Because we have a spake to do every day.
Wow.
Well, we have 4 days. We have to finish in 4 days. But Tzarech Lahavi, the L'cha'ura, at first glance, Habir Ba'ashaychas, the Gimel Avos, this explanation, the relevance of Gimel Avos, the 3 levels of love, L'Gimel Madregas, to the 3 levels Dilamayla of above, Ula'achrei Havanas Inyanim, the Gimel Madregas. This is after one understands the whole notion of Gimel Madregas. So I was just continuing to explain this idea. Meaning, this was all based on a diuk in the words of the Rebbe Rashab, where the Rebbe Rashab said that the Gimel Avos are a biur. So where did he say it? He said the word the mizem muvan inyan Gimel Madregas. Right? That from Ava you'll understand the Gimel Madregas. Now usually we say the other way around. From understanding these 3 levels of godliness, I'll understand these levels of Aveda. Now, from these levels of Aveda, I'll understand these 3 levels of Elokus. That's what the Rebbe Rashab said. We didn't explain it. And the Rebbe just explained it in this absolutely astounding way. But Tzarech Lahavi, the L'chor, at first glance, Habir, the explanation, Ba'ashaychus, the Gimel Avos, of the relevance of the Gimel Avos to the Gimel Madregas, to these 3 different levels of godly light, Mamale, Shevev, Etzem Ha'or, who, La'achrei Havanas Inyan Gimel Madregas, after I understand that there's these 3 different levels of light, I can then appreciate that there's 3 levels of Ava. Umehem shechinyonim ba'mayim, but from the order of things in the Maimer of the Rebbe Rashab, mashma the inyan zeh, this idea, shegimel madregas, elohem gimel avos, this idea that these 3 different levels of godly light correspond to these 3 different levels of our love for Kadosh Baruch Hu. The Rebbe Rashab says, meisif bir begimel madregas. And this is where we saw I said it outside, but now we'll see it inside. Right? When the Rebbe says that means this is the whole address of this idea. The reason that there are above Gimel Madregas, 3 different levels of godly light, shebehem, that in those 3 levels, nichlolim are incorporated kol agiluyim, any level of godly revelation, any level of light, all levels of light. There's a bili gvul levels of godliness as light descends down. All of those different levels can be incorporated ultimately in these 3 levels. Either it's etzem or shelifnei etzimsum, it's a level of sever, it's a level of mamale. Now mamale, of course, includes 4 worlds. And those 4 worlds, each world has 10 spheres, and each 10 spheres has in itself 10 spheres. So already that's hundreds of different levels of godly reality. Say they're okay. And in the lowest level of that reality of Orma Male, how many different expressions of godly energy are there down here? for all intents and purposes, in an infinite amount of expressions, right? I mean, how many things live down here? Right? I mean, you count them. You won't get there, right? Endless different aspects of expression of godly reality. So there'll be a tiger, but there'll be a Bengal tiger and a Siberian tiger, and they're different, right? There'll be a lion, and there'll be an elephant, but there'll be an Asian elephant and an African elephant, and they're all different, and so they're all different expressions of godly reality, right? And that's just in chayas and behemoths, etc. And then, there's insects, endless amounts, right? Do you think the ant population will ever stop, right? As much as you fight it, they seem to always be there. Okay, and that's just down here in El Mazah. But all of that reality can be, the reality we just talked about can all be understood within the context of one idea, or mamela. It's all mamela. I Sevev also, even in Sevev, even though it's infinite, and it's hard to differentiate between levels of infinite reality, but there are levels of infinite light that are more connected to what's below and less connected to what's below. Right? Pneumius, Chitzonius. We saw that with Atik and Arik. They're both Sevev. But one's a level of Sevev that's the source of Mamala, and one's a level of Sevev that's completely transcendent. So the fact that all of light can be incorporated in these three levels, Kikola Giluyim de Lamaila, the reason that ultimately the source of these levels of light is our Aveda. Ultimately, even the highest levels of Gilui are ultimately for us. The cave and Shiba'avas Hashem. And since regarding the love of God, that's the Ikar Aveda, and there is no service like the service of love. Yeshnam Gimel Avis, there are three different levels of love, and that level of Aveda, therefore, therefore, the basic reality of all states of revelation, which is a synonym for light, the Lamaila above, Nechalakim Legimel Madregas, are divided up into three levels corresponding to the three different levels of love. Mamala Seviv or Ein Sof Shalamaila Miseviv, and the infinite light that's beyond Seviv. The Behesem Legimel Avis, that is consistent in concert with the three different levels of love. The cave and Shahavon the Sinyan al Buria. Since this is new, we didn't see any of this. And since the understanding of this idea completely, Hu al Yedei, is by virtue, is by explaining it in terms of its foundation and its root. I mean, to understand something, you have to understand the basis of it. Therefore, what does the Rebbe Rashab say? Lochein hascholas abir, the beginning of the explanation by Maimer shal gimel madregas the lamaila, of these three different levels of light, which the Rebbe Rashab is explaining in that Maimer Tafresh Samach, who ech shebem mehem gimel avos, is dafka through the three different levels of love. Because this is the source of it all. Shanim shachu gimel madregas. Why are there three different levels of light? Because of the three different levels of Aveda. And it all starts with Aveda. Because again, so to speak, where's the shurish of Aveda? Atzmus. So what's Aveda about? Connecting the Atzmus. That's what Aveda is about. It's all about. Okay. That's Aveda. So therefore, every single level of reality exists in order to achieve that desire of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, that there be something called Aveda. Therefore, Aveda is this true different aspects of Aveda will be the source of understanding those different levels of godly light that exist in order to bring about that Aveda. It's really an astounding idea. Okay, so what I'm just going to continue.
I'm sorry, I have a problem understanding. Did we say that the three different levels of love, that comes before the...
Absolutely. Those are three different levels of our service of God. What's the source of our service of God?
It's Atzmus.
Atzmus. There you go. If you can answer that question, so then that's the answer to the that's the basis of the explanation of what the Rebbe just said. Once I say that, so then why are there three different levels of godly light? In order to bring about a situation where these three different levels of Aveda can be expressed.
Okay.
Right? And if there was only one level of Ava, then it would only be Mamala. Right? Okay. What would that look like? Who knows? I mean, the Eber's going to do whatever he wants. It wouldn't be. I don't know. It would only be Mamala. How could that possibly be Ichves? The light as it emanates out of Atzmus would already be in a state of incredible tzimtzum. I don't know. Whatever. Could the Eber's make it such that the light that emanates from the sun, mamish from the sun, meaning you could be a million miles away from the sun, but the intensity of that light would be exactly the same as its intensity down here. Maybe we should do that if we wanted to. I mean, it doesn't have to be the way it is, right? Did he? No, we didn't do it that way. But theoretically, so Moshe Rabbeinu is davening to the Eibusher because he wants to go fly to the sun, and he says, "Do me a favor, do me a miracle. What? Make the sun up there the intensity down here, so I can fly right next to it." Could the Eibusher do such a miracle? Of course, the Eibusher do such a why? What a silly question.
Could you just go at night?
You could go at night. There you go. That's the Polish space program. That was when we were a kid. That was the joke. When the Russians and the Americans were racing to the moon, so the joke was the Poles said they're going to go to the sun, and they said, "How can you go to the sun?" They said, "We're going to go at night." That was a 10-year-old Canadian. That was our joke about the Poles. You're allowed to tell jokes about the Poles. They deserve everything they get. Okay, but Yeshiva. Now the Rebbe is going to continue. Now, remember, all of this was to explain what? In Ois Ches, in Ois Vav and Zion, the Rebbe explained why we need Tefillah l'Moshe, why it has to be Tefillah and not Torah, because in order for it to be Nimshach Lamata in the most successful way, in order for this light to be drawn down below in the most successful way and affect the below, it had to come from the Avodah from below. Right? That's what we learned in Vav and Zion. In Ches, the Rebbe said, but by Immerse, there's something even deeper. That's Ches, Tes, and Yud. The Rebbe is explaining that the Oifen HaMshach, the way, meaning not, put it simply, the light is also changed by virtue of the fact that it's Tefillah in the Moshe. Meaning, when we said in Vav and Zion, what do we say? Malchus is changed. The way the light affects Malchus is more powerful if it comes from below, from a result of Aveda below. That's what we said. That was Vav and Zion. Right? And if you're writing yourself notes in the Mimer, Vav and Zion, you can write next to Vav and Zion. You know, the effect of the Hamshacha through Tefillah. That's those two oises. What's Ches Tes Yud? Right? We're going to see Yud now. Ches Tes Yud is, if you'll notice, the second paragraph in Yud was a say, V'zeh Tefillah l'Moshe. Right? But we just explained that, didn't we? Didn't we explain Tefillah l'Moshe? Yeah, we explained it once. We explained how through Tefillah we affect the below more powerfully. Then the Rebbe said, on a deeper level, I want to show you how the light itself is affected by virtue of it. Not just the below, but even the light. Now we're sort of getting an inkling of where we're going to, right? Because by virtue of our Aveda, what are we doing? Well, ultimately, what's the purpose of this light? To come down into Elam Hazah to the highest level of light. Ultimately, it's part of a process that will produce something called a Veda. You and I serving God in a place of apparent concealment. Okay. That means that when you and I do that Veda, we ultimately bring about the fulfillment of the purpose of that light, even the highest level of light. And when something fulfills its purpose, it experiences an elevation. So we're actually going to bring about an elevation of Orein Sof Shalifnei Tzimtzum by virtue of the fact that, well, we're doing it right now by virtue of the fact that we're learning Torah, and we're going to do it a little later when we put on tefillin and everything else that we do. Why is there a level of light called Orein Sof Shalifnei Tzimtzum? So you and I can put on tefillin. So when you and I put on tefillin, what are we doing? Allowing that level of godliness to fulfill its purpose. And ultimately, what's the source of its purpose? Atzmos. So what do we allow that level of light to connect to, so to speak? Its source in Atzmos. We bring about an elevation in that level of light. And remember, what this all started with was the Rebbe explaining, this deeper explanation, explaining the idea that we bring about a tikkun, that the Abishah created us in order to fix. So fixing mamale, we get it. Even fixing soivev, we get it, because the soivev, we said it's in the level of infinite light, but Tzimtzum affected it. So there's, so to speak, a place it can't go. There's something it can't do, so we can fix that too. That's the usher. He doesn't need any fixing. I mean, there's nothing wrong up there. There's no tzimtzum. It's perfect. It's beyond anything imaginable. Oh no, even that level of light, still light. It's not etzim. Therefore, what? It doesn't have to be. It is. Okay, to put it in the terms we put before, emes lamita. It's emes. Is it emes lamita? No. By virtue of our avodah, what do? We connect it to its source in emes lamita. Let's see. The Rebbe doesn't use those words, but that's just a way of explaining it in a slightly different way. Let's see. V'yesh leimar. Datam b'pnimius inyanim. The reason in pnimius yanim al zeh sham shochas v'gilui gimel inyanim, that the drawing down and the revelation of these three different levels of light, and the Rebbe keeps saying it every time in case we forgot what they are. The mamale, v'seive, v'atzmas, v'reinsei. Those three levels of light. Mamale, the light that powers the world. Seive, the light that surrounds the world, encompasses the world, but isn't revealed in the world. And atzmas, v'reinsei, a level of light that's completely beyond tzimtzum, level of light before tzimtzum. Who? Al Yadei Gimel Aves, this all is drawn down into this world by our avodah, and the ikar of that avodah is the Gimel Aves, the three different levels of love, the B'chol Levavcha, B'chol Nafshecha, B'chol Meodecha. Who? What's this really all about? Ki hakavana b'kol hagilui. This is what we've been saying outside, and other Rebbe saying it inside. Ki hakavana, the intention, b'chol hagiluyim, in all levels of godly light. Giluyim is a synonym for or. Who, bechdei, is in order, sha'al yodam, that through them, tiacharkach b'yoseilam, that afterwards there will be the creation of the world. That's what the Eibishter wants. Up there in Atzmos, what does he want? Eilam hazeh. All these other places are incredible, beautiful, amazing. But what does he want? He wants to get down here. V'lochein, kemei shebriyas ha'olam haisa ba'if, since the creation of the world was in a way, Shekol in Yonim Shabbai, that all of matters in it, in the world, Yistaknu, will be fixed, Al Yedei Avedas Adam, through our Aveda. Right? Look at footnote 63, just because it's the source of this. Koloshina Medrash, Shaba'ara 51, Kol Ma Shenivra B'Sheish Mei B'Reishis Tzarech Tikkun. Everything that was created in Sheish Mei B'Reishis requires Tikkun. Right? Now, generally, what do we think that relates to? Physicality requires a tikkun. No. Kol ma shenivra b'sheish mei b'reishis. Everything that is a function of that reality called the 6 days of creation. What does that include? Mamale, obviously. Soivev. And etzem ha'or. Why is there etzem ha'or? Why is there such a level of reality? Yeshiva wants to create the world. So even that level, now that level does not require chos v'sholom atikun. The Yeshiva doesn't have to be fixed. Malchus, mamale, so we saw Malchus, the Yeshiva created reality in such a way that Malchus has a pegam. That the Yeshiva did that to himself, so to speak. Okay. That we saw. Shviras Kalim. Okay. That's a mar. It's Mars the Usher. It's not lacking anything. Oh, well, it's lacking one thing. It doesn't have to be. Right? It doesn't have to be. That level of reality doesn't have to be. It only exists because the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants it to. Now, it's a level of reality. When we say Kadosh Baruch Hu, we mean Atzmos. That Atzmos wants that level to exist, so it does. All levels of godly light, as amazing as they are, infinite, godly lights, the Eibishter himself, mamish. It doesn't have to be. Now, it's hard for us to understand. They will wrap our head around such a thing. Okay, but just in the lowest, crassest physical terms, right? Someone has a child. The child is 3 weeks old. So the child just, boato. There's nothing happening with the child, right? Okay. Is it reasonable to imagine a situation where that child's father or mother would express the deepest, most essential, powerful, and sophisticated aspect of his or her being solely for the benefit of that child?
No.
No? Not child? They couldn't do that?
Could they?
Yeah, no, they could. I mean,
The
that's,
child is not in a position to understand.
child hasn't got a clue what's going on, 100%. But could they do that? Well, I mean, certainly we know one thing the parent will do for that child is be Meiser Nefesh.
Yeah.
The parent will make the most powerful expression of the meaning of their being for that child, because ultimately, what do they understand? And on a certain level, the most powerful expression of the meaning of my being is that child. Like nothing else matters, right? Ad Grei Kaplan Chazal have to tell us that loving the Eibishter means you love the Eibishter even more than that child. Oh, come on. Eibishter, yesh gvul. No. Right? When Chazal talk about and his products, it's all the time, loving the Eibishter, it means that I'm even willing to forego my wife and my children for the Eibishter. Whoa. Now he doesn't ask, right? He doesn't ask us to, Baruch Hashem. But are we supposed to be in such a place? Yes, ultimately we're supposed to be in such a place. Okay. So now back to the parent. So the parent could express an incredibly sophisticated, deep expression of their own being solely for the sake of that child. You're right. The child has no clue what's going on. The child has no clue b'chlal. I mean, wonder what's going on b'chlal in there. Okay. But it's not the parent that could happen. Okay, so now obviously it's a bad mushal because it's us, but okay. The Eibishter, ultimately, Atzmus Ein Sof. What's the ultimate purpose of the expression of Atzmus Ein Sof? That we should come free and do it. That's why there's such a level of reality. Okay. And now what's really interesting, because you might say, okay, but Eibishter, if it's all about us, so then, why bother with all these different levels of godly reality? Just, get down here more quickly, so to speak, right? Without all these levels. So there's one level that we've talked about before, and it's certainly true. The very fact that there are all these intermediate levels of godly reality gives you and I something to talk about in terms of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, and we can learn about it. But the Rebbe is saying something much deeper. Why are there all these different levels of Elokus? Because there's those different levels of Araveda. It's all about Araveda. Those different levels of Araveda are the source of the fact that there are all these different levels of Elokus. Why is there Atzmus Ein Sof? Because there's something called V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha B'chol Me'odecha. That's why. If there were no level of B'chol Me'odecha, it was only the second chapter in Kriya Shema, not the first, there would be Atzmus Ein Sof. So what does that mean? So to speak, it would only be or after tzimtzum, or whatever. There'd be Seivin Mamala. Could God do that? Do it that way? Do whatever He wants. It doesn't, right? No, He didn't do it that way. Why not? Because there's this level called B'chol Me'odecha. Wow, it's like such an unbelievable idea. You have to really sit and think about it. But wait until you see what the Rebbe says in footnote 65. He's going to quote his father-in-law, and we'll see what the. I just heard a beautiful story. Someone, maybe it was told here, maybe someone here told, I don't remember. But someone was in the Rebbitzin's house, and they said something about the Frierdiker Rebbe. And the Rebbitzin turned around and smiled and said, "That's my father." Imagine, you talk about the Frierdiker Rebbe and something, you think this being turns around and says, "Oh, that's my father." That's someone's father, yeah. That's true, he's someone's father. It's hard to imagine him that way, but he's someone's father. Okay. So, Brias Ha'olam was in such a way, Shekol Inyanim Shebei Yittaknu will be fixed, hitpa'el, right? Al yedei avodas adam. Bichdei shal yedei zeh, by virtue of the fact that through this, adam shutaf l'kadosh baruch hu, ma'aser bereishis. We saw that earlier, but what's the shutfus? The shutfus isn't just in the creation of ants, slugs, eggs, and chickens. The shutfus is in the bringing into being of atzmas ein sof. Why is there atzmas ein sof? Because the Eibishter wants you and I to be a shutaf in ma'aser bereishis through our avodah, and so there's that level of reality. And why is there that level of reality? Because there's that level of avodah, and that's called v'ahavta Hashem Elokecha b'chol me'odecha. And since that level of avodah is an expression of the Eibishter allowing us to be His partner in ma'aser bereishis. Wow. Al derech zeh u'benegei legiluyim, so too, not only is it relevant, in other words, said explicitly, not only is it relevant to physical reality, all the worlds, Aleph Beis in Chassidus, what do we say? That when we do a mitzvah down here, we're meisif or in Olam Atzilus. We add light in Olam Atzilus. That sounds pretty good, right? Wow. We add light in Olam Atzilus. Why? So if you think about what's the mathematics of that, it's really very simple based on what you already know. There's a level called Arich, which is the source of Olam Atzilus, right? That's what we said. And what's Arich? The Ratzon. It's Ratzon, so to speak. Okay? So when you do a mitzvah, what are you touching, so to speak? The Ratzon of Kadosh Baruch Hu. What's that causing, so to speak? That Ratzon should be Nimshach Lamat. That Ratzon should be drawn down below. The Ratzon being drawn, Arich being drawn down below. What's the first thing that comes into being? A place called Olam Atzilus. What's coming, again, in crass physical terms, what's, so to speak, coming out of Arich, and where's it going? Light is emanating out of Arich and being drawn down into Atzilus. It's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. Now, it continues and makes all of Seder Yishtalshus more healthy and proper and ultimately be a place of revelation. The light will emanate downward in a revealed way, and we'll see light in a revealed way down here in Olam Hazeh. It's a mitzvah. Connection. Okay. That's Aleph base. Here the Rebbe is just taking us.
Tough.
Al derech zeh u'benegeh b'giluyim d'lamayla. Also, not only are we a shutef in the creation of physical reality, we're a shutef in the bringing into being of the highest levels of godly reality. His havusam, they're bringing into being. Hamshachosam, they're being drawn down here, or just being drawn down in general, meaning coming into existence, so to speak, outside of Atzmos. Haisa ba'ifin was in such a way, shagilui shalehem, their revelation, will be al yedei avodas adam. Who brings about a revelation of that light? Us, through our avodah. Bichdei, in order, shashut v'shel adam, the partnership of you and I with the Eibishter, l'kadosh baruch hu b'ma'aser bereishis, Tia will be loyrak ba'olam atzmi, not only in the world itself, the physical world that you and I live in, elagam b'hagiluyim d'lamayla, but also in the revelations above, shal yodam, that through those revelations, through those different levels of godly light, the creation of the world came about. Famous statement of the Baal Shem Tov that was quoted by the Maggid that everybody knows. The Rebbe quotes it. Da ma lamayla mima. Know what's above you, and what did the Maggid explain it? Da, you should know. Ma lamayla, what is above, mim comes from you. The other Rebbe is explaining that in the most amazing way. You should know that godly reality above is a function of what you do below. That we affect godly reality. Why? Because the Eibishter decided that that's what he wants, because he wants us to be his shutaf. He wants us to be his partner. So that means we affect all of reality through our mitzvahs. Not simply physical reality. Not even, the level of metaphysical reality that is the source of physical reality. No. Every level of godly reality outside of Atzmus is affected by our... And then, obviously you can't say we affect Atzmus, but we connect to Atzmus by virtue of our Avodah, because what's the source of where that desire, where did the Eibishter say to himself, so to speak, I'd like tefillin? Why? I don't know. No clue. Okay, so when you and I put on tefillin, we connect to that place in him. Okay. What's in between, so to speak, that place and where we are? Every different level of godly light imaginable that's ever been discussed in Chassidus. Male, Seive, Etzem, it's all there. It's all affected. Let's keep reading. This is unbelievable. The cave in She'ikar Avedis Adam, and since the essence of our service, who Avos Hashem, the lace Pulchanaka Muso. When the Eibishter asks for Aveda, what does he ask? He asks us to serve him. That's true. Therefore, he wants us to do mitzvahs. That's true. But he wants those mitzvahs to be imbued with an energy and a love. And that's the Ikar Aveda, is to come to a place where we love the Eibishter, and that's the Ikar Aveda. Leis Pulchanaka Muso, that's what the Zohar says. That doesn't mean that there isn't some level of Aveda before that. There's Yira. There's also just right. We saw in V'yadaber, the Maimon we learned in Shavuos time, that even mitzvahs anoshim melumade, even doing mitzvahs by rote, the Rebbe called Aveda, which was really quite interesting. That's also an Aveda. Why? Because the person at least has brought about a situation in himself where naturally every day he gets up and puts on tefillin and davens. Does he think about it? Not in the least, but he's doing it. That's pretty good. Right? That's the level of Avedas Hashem that it takes the Baal Tshuva a while to appreciate. Because the Baal Tshuva looks down at that guy there. I daven like a real, and this guy, look at him. Then he grows up a little in Yiddishkeit and starts to appreciate things in a different way. And he also starts davening exactly the same way as that guy who said he would never daven like. Right? But he also starts to appreciate. Not that that's where we want to stay. That's daimim. We said that was like daimim. It's the lowest level, but it's a level. Because bottom line, that person, there's no such thing as not getting up in the morning, going to minyan and davening with a minyan. No such thing. That's very impressive. Okay, is there more? Lots. That's just the beginning, but it's a beginning. Without that, there's nothing. Okay, but that's something. Guy will never miss minyan, ever. Just there, like a rock. Okay. Doesn't seem to be enjoying it that much. Okay, he does. I don't know. Stick a pin in and see, what like sticking the thing in a turkey. Is it ready? How do you know? You don't know what's going on in there. It doesn't look like much is happening. Okay. You have to come to a level of love. Therefore, this revelation of these three levels, that in these three levels is included all different aspects of lofty reality. Is through the three different levels of love. Wow. By virtue of the fact that these levels above are drawn down and revealed, the true purpose of them is revealed through our Aveda. So they're revealed through our Aveda. The reality of these levels is revealed through our Aveda. Wait until you see what the Frierdiker Rebbe is going to say in footnote 65. We'll get there in a sec. Nase behem. Now the Rebbe says an amazing thing. It's brought about in them an aliyah, an elevation l'mayla yeser, higher mikmesha mitzaratzma than they are themselves. Now we explained that outside, but here we say the Rebbe says it inside. You, by virtue of putting on tefillin, by virtue of sitting and learning a Ma'amer Chassidus, by sitting and learning a din in Shulchan Aruch, by putting a dollar in a pushka, by going over to a Jew who looks like he could use a hug and giving him a hug, by doing that you are elevating Atzmus or Ein Sof. Oh. By not washing as much as you'd like in the next 9 days, you're elevating Atzmus or Ein Sof. Can't we do it another way? Okay, right? Don't eat meat. Right? God tells us in the Torah, they're going to eat meat. They're going to give them so much meat, it's going to come out their nose. Now, what does he say? Don't eat meat. Oh, same God. You want to serve God? Eat meat. Don't eat meat. Whatever he says, right? You know, this Shabbos, what are you going to do? Eat meat. Have a good time. Have the most joyous Shabbos of the year, right? As soon as it's over, over. Now it's Shavuot Shechal Boy. Oh my gosh, it's like really. Don't be depressed. Okay, look at footnote 64, 65. So 64, the Rebbe says, Our Avodah Shehu a Tikkun Shalem. Now he puts Tikkun in parentheses, in quotation marks, because these levels of godly light don't really need Tikkun, especially when we're talking about Atmos Ein Sof. We said, Tzimtzum didn't affect that level of light at all. That's the level of Asher, based on what we said earlier in the Maimon. So it doesn't require Tikkun. But what's the Tikkun, so to speak? It's elevated. Where is it elevated to, so to speak? Lekutei Diburim. You ever read Lekutei Diburim? You have to read Lekutei Diburim. It's really well translated into English also. Really, really well. R B Kaplan translates. He captures all of the romance of the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Frierdiker Rebbe is a romantic. You read the books that are absolutely required reading. Branches of the Hasidic Menorah. Something, what's it called, the Hasidic Legacy or something, the Hasidic. Anyway, there's that's two volumes, which are all the writings of the Frierdiker Rebbe that Shimon Neubert translated. Absolutely required reading. Shimon Neubert translated, and also there's branches of the Hasidic Menorah and the Hasidic Legacy or something like that.
The memoirs?
No, the memoirs also amazing. I remember years ago, 35 years ago, I walked into the office of a serious Lubavitcher Rav, and I'd gone to Kas in Kfar Chabad, to buy some books, and he asked me, "What'd you buy?" Now this is 35 years ago, before anything was translated. I said, "I bought the Lubavitcher Rabbi's memoirs." So he said, "Oh, that's the most important book to read in English." Right? Now, since then, there's been a lot. Shimon Neubert translated 2 books. Again, 2 volumes, a branch of Hasidic the branches of the Hasidic Menorah, which are required reading, and one other, I think the Hasidic Legacy, also required. It's much of it in letters the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote to our Rebbetzin, explaining Chassidus. Amazing, absolutely amazing. And also Lekutei Diburim. So that was translated by Shimon Neubert, and he captured everything in there. Also, R B Kaplan captured all of the romance you're right. The Lubavitcher Rebbe's memoir is also like a romantic book. He just writes this incredibly romantic story about the generations before the Baal Shem Tov. It's amazing. I took that book once to Miluim, because I was on the Hermon in Miluim for a month, and I didn't have much to do. So, 2 hours a day most, I was doing something for the army. The rest of the day, I was just sort of sitting around. I didn't have anything to do. But I made work for myself. Like I was theoretically in charge of 13 bases. There's a rub. But now you can't get to most of the bases. So the bases that I could go with a truck to and visit for an hour and then come back, so I went. There were bases that, the truck goes up and leaves right away and it doesn't come back for a week, so I couldn't go there because I'd be stuck there for a week. All right, so, I could go, but there'd be no reason to. So, I didn't have a lot to do. So I happened to have taken Lubavitcher Rabbi's memoirs with me, and I was rationing my reading of it every day because I wanted it to last. I would have finished it in one day, but I just wanted it to last, so I would read like 20 pages and then not let myself read anymore, because so tomorrow I could read some more. Yeah, so what an amazing book. Amazing. Okay, so let's see what the Frierdiker Rebbe says here. Lekutei Diburim. You should all read Lekutei Diburim. Learn it. It's a compilation of Farbrengens of the Frierdiker Rebbe in difficult years. Sometimes those Farbrengens, right? The Chassidim are asking the Rebbe questions and the Rebbe's answering. It's like, why? There's small little Farbrengens. How many people are sitting in the Farbrengen? Poland, Russia, last year's in Russia, Poland. How many people? 15 people, 20 people. Look at what the Rebbe says. By virtue of the thought of a person, in things of above, meaning sit and think about those things that we're learning about. Atzmus or Seive, Mamale, think about the difference between them, what Atzmus or is, what does that mean? It's Lifnei Tzimtzum. What's the importance of such an idea? What's the relevance of such all that. Nase behem, by thinking about these levels of godliness, he brings about in them, in the levels of godliness, aliyah, an elevation. Bedugmas, similar to ha'aliyah shenases b'devarim gashmim, similar to the elevation that's brought about in a physical object, al yedei shemevim toyelis, by virtue of the fact that that physical object brought about some purpose, l'avodas Hashem. So by virtue of, when you use a physical object in service of God, you understand you've obviously elevated that physical object. That's clear. What if you think about a level of godly reality? So now, generally, when we think about thinking about, when we talk about thinking about godly reality, it's called hisbeinenus, right? When we talk about contemplation and meditation, etc., why are we talking about it? To elevate ourselves. I want to be connected to a higher level of reality. I want to be more connected to Elokus. Usually, we'll talk about that in the context of, therefore, when I daven, I might actually pay attention to some of the words. Okay, that's true. But the Rebbe just said something quite astounding. When you're sitting and being misbeinin in a particular, contemplating a particular level of godly reality, yes, you're elevating your conscious reality. There's no question. What else are you doing? The Rebbe just said you're elevating that level of godly reality. So if you and I are sitting and thinking about Atzmus Ein Seif, Shelifnei Tzimtzum, we're bringing about an elevation in Atzmus Ein Seif, Shelifnei Tzimtzum. Whoa. How can that be? I am going to bring about an elevation in Atzmus Ein Seif, Shelifnei Tzimtzum. And I'm not picking on you, Doc. I'm picking on myself. I'm picking on all of us. I'm just bringing the example. I know whether the Mets won yesterday or not. How can I possibly bring about an elevation in Atzmus Ein Seif, right? I mean, give me a break. Okay, it might not be the Mets. I might know the Mariners, right? I mean, like, how can it possibly be? I mean, that's lower than the Mets, right? Wow. No, because the Mets at least have won something. I mean, the Mariners is like not even shaykh. Okay. The Orioles, right? The Redskins, I don't know, right? Or I might know who J.D. Vance is. Someone who knows who J.D. Vance is could elevate Atzmus Ein Seif. And I have nothing against J.D. Vance. He looks like a nice guy. You know, I didn't want to mention anybody else because it might be Takashaihu if you have some, Kamala Harris in your head. Maybe you can't elevate. I don't know. Even her, even if you know who she is, you still know what that is, and you've heard about it, and you've actually heard her cackle, and yet you can still elevate Atzmus Ein Seif. Wow. That is really astounding. That is just pashut. It's amazing, no? Mm-hmm. The Eibishter is so kind to us. Umikol shekeh, all the more so, kishimekayim ben mitzvah. Or the more so when you take that thought and bring it into an action of a mitzvah. V'yesh lemer daliyah binyanim delamaya alideshin imshachim, and I'm sorry reading quickly, but I want to get a little further. One can say that by the elevation in these matters above, al yedei, by virtue, shenimshachim al yedei avedas adam, that they're drawn down through our aveda, right? That's what we're talking about. He ba'ofen nayin liyeser is higher. Mikaven shavedas adam, because our service, he b'negel amshachas inyanim atzmim, is relevant to drawing down of these different lofty levels of godly reality. Right? That's what we've been saying the whole Maimer. And not only not only that you and I might use this information and this hisbeinenus and these ideas to help us serve God. That's true. You and I will sit and learn Chassidus, and there's no question it's going to affect our conscious reality. We might be a person who's a little more connected to something true and a little less connected to things that are false. That's definitely true. There's no question. But the Rebbe says, the Rebbe quotes the Frierdiker Rebbe, that not only that, we are also affecting whatever godly reality we're thinking about. Positive. Why? Why does that level exist? So that you and I can contemplate it, so that we can come closer to God through that contemplation. Wow. That's just an amazing idea. It's absolutely mind-blowing idea. The Rebbe just lays it out there. V'zeo, look, we have 5 minutes. V'zeo tefillah l'meisha. This is the second answer to tefillah l'meisha. Vav and Zayin, tefillah l'meisha. Why? Because Malchus is affected by the educator from below, so the effect on the below is more powerful if it's brought from below. That was Vav and Zayin. Right? It's about down here. Ches, Tes, Yud, which we're about to finish, that is explaining the effect on the light itself, not on how the light affects the below, but the light itself is affected by our Aveda. That's what we said, right? Not only how, but in the Amshacha itself, in the light itself. That's what the Rebbe is explaining. So now, what's Tefillah Meisha? The Amshachas HaGilui, the drawing down of the Gilui, the Atzmus Erein, of the essence of God's light, Shalamayla Miseviv, that's beyond Seviv, Shehimshich Meisha, that Meisha brought down B'Malchus, Haisa Yedei Tefillah Dafka, it was Dafka through Tefillah, avoided from below. Now we understand why. Hagam, the cave, and Shem Meisha Hu Das Elyon, even though since Meisha Hu is Das Elyon, Shemakabel mi atik, and he's connected to Atzmus or Ein Sof Shelamayla Misev, and he's living that reality. Haya b'yecholte, he had the ability lahamshich b'malchus, to draw down in malchus or zeh, this level of light, b'derech milamayla lamata, from above below. Right, that was our question. Why doesn't he do it through Torah? So now we're giving a second reason. Ki al yedei sham shachas ha'or, by virtue of the fact that the drawing down of this light, hi al yedei tefillah, is through tefillah. And what does tefillah mean? Avodas ha'adam, our service below, b'derech milamata lamaylo, from below above. Nishlemes ha'kavana, it's now fulfilled. The intention should be shvilav, that for its purpose, netzal ha'or, that the or itself came into being. Not only, yes, the world, absolutely, but not only the world, also the or, because the whole purpose of the or is to bring about a world. So not only is the world affected more powerfully if it comes from tefillah, and that was Ois Vav and Zayin, now the or is affected more powerfully, and that's Ches Tes Yud. Now Yedei Zeh Nase B'I Aliyah. Now the Rebbe says something amazing. I'll try to explain it very, very quickly, because I know it's Rosh Chodesh, you want to get to davening. And it adds in the unlimited nature of it. What does that mean? The light that's built in Gvul is now more built in Gvul. Okay, so that we can explain since we've already talked about it. Okay, let's read another line and then we'll talk about it. What does this mean? Built in Gvul Shabbat, this unlimited aspect of the light. We're talking about Atzmus Orish, who loy rak is not only Kameshu Mitzad Atzmus, it's not only in terms of its own geder, its own description. What is Atzmus Orish Lifnei Tzimtzum? Light that's completely beyond limitation. 100%, no question. That's what it is. It's beyond Tzimtzum in any way, shape, or form. And what did we say about it? Loy naga by Tzimtzum. Tzimtzum didn't affect it in any way, shape, or form. Mamale, the whole reality of Mamale is all Tzimtzum. Sevev, Tzimtzum affected Sevev, because Sevev can't be revealed in the place of Mamale. Etzem ha'or, Tzimtzum didn't affect it in any way, shape, or form. That's mitzad itself. Etzem ha'or, she'ein shayach by Tzimtzum v'siluk. Right? A level of light that's not shayach. Tzimtzum, there's no limitation relevant to it. Elo, now what's been added to it, so to speak, gam kameshu mitzad atzmus. Now, the level of Bilti Gvul is also Mitzad Atzmus, because it's connected to its source in Atzmus. So now, what did the Rebbe just say? let's use other terms that we've already used, and we'll explain it, and then we'll read the last line, and we'll stop, and we'll pick up the line. The difference between emes and emes lamite, which is brought from Rebbe Shabbat. There's sort of the home address of it is the Rebbe Shabbat Samachavi talks about it a lot, but there's my mind about Rebbe also. What's the difference between emes, truth, and emes lamite? You see that sometimes in Chassidus, right? It's emes lamite. It's absolute truth. What's the difference between truth and absolute truth? It's either true or it's not true. True is true. No, there's a difference. What's the difference? What's emes? Emes is something that's unlimited by definition. If it's limited, so it's not emes. It's limited reality. What's emes? Emes is the extra, right? So something's limited. It's not emes. It's not the true expression of emes. Okay. So emes is unlimited. So then we can say about Or Shelifnei Tzimtzum that it's emes because it's unlimited, right? Okay, it's definitely unlimited. Okay, but what? And we talked about this before. Now we can see how it's relevant to the mimer itself. What's it lacking, so to speak? It's lacking the level in which it has to be. It doesn't have to be. That level of light isn't what's called, again, mechuyev v'metzius. It's not absolutely necessary. Therefore, it's limited, because it could not be. There could be a reality without that level of light. Okay. Why? Because that level of light exists solely because, and we'll use the to say this is hard to understand, but fine, Atzmus wants it to. Now again, once you're talking about Ratzon and Atzmus, you're already talking about a certain level of revelation, but don't worry about that. We just don't have any other words. Atzmus wants that level to be. Therefore it is. So that's the limitation that it has. It's emes. Mitzad itself, that's what Rabbi said. In terms of how we define it, what is it? Unlimited. What's unlimited? Emes. Anything that's not unlimited isn't ultimately emes. Why? Because God is emes. God is emes and God is unlimited. So it's emes. It's not emes lamite. Why not? About what can you say that it's absolute emes? Why? Because there's no reality. It has to be. There's no reality without it. You can't imagine a reality without it. There's no such thing as a reality without it. It must be. It's absolute emes. It is what is. And there's no possibility of it not being. What about Asmus Ein Sof? Is it theoretically possible that that level of reality doesn't exist? Well, to put it in our crass terms of time, so to speak, even though obviously you can't say this about the Eibishter, before the Eibishter had that taiva up there in Atzmus to create a new B'tartei, so to speak, was there a level called Atzmus or Ein Sof? No. What was there? Just Atzmus. It was just the Eibishter. What does that look like? I don't know. It was just him. For how long? For a beyond infinite amount of non-time. There was just Atzmus. And then all of a sudden, so to speak, Atzmus goes, a dear b'tapterni, that would be cool. Atzmus Odeitzer comes into being. Why? Because he wants it to be. So to speak, before that. There's no before, right? But so to speak. Was there Atzmus Odeitzer? No. Doesn't have to be Atzmus Odeitzer. Oh. So that's emes, but not emes lamite. So when you and I do a mitzvah down here, what do? We connect Atzmus Ein Sof to its source in Atzmus. So now it's connected to emes lamite. It's elevated. Because the whole purpose of its existence is to express Atzmus. Was it expressing Atzmus before? Well, pretty powerfully, but not completely. Now you and I do a mitzvah. The mitzvah is connecting it to Atzmus also, just like it's connecting you and I to Atzmus. V'lochein, therefore, back to the beginning of it all, binyan HaMalchus, the fixing of Malchus, shenas al yedei or, that's brought about through the or, k'meisha nimshach al yedei tfilas meisha, that's drawn down through tfilas meisha, binyan adayad. Now, on a certain level, And this is what we always say about Yemei Mashiach, that there'll be a Gilui Atzmus. But we've been talking about a Gilui Atzmus Or this whole night. Not Gilui Atzmus, Gilui Atzmus Or. Right? Well, now they're one and the same thing. Through our Avodah, what have we done? We've connected Atzmus Or to its source in Atzmus. So what do we draw down? Atzmus. That's a binyan hadayat. Okay. We'll go over that again tomorrow because that's quite a plateful. Right? It's really quite astounding, right? And the Rebbe's just sitting there telling us this. Sitting in his chair, leaning forward, telling us all this. And then, so our next question will be, we're going to go back to the beginning, so to speak. In the beginning of the Maimer, what was our question? How can it be that if Moshe Rabbeinu, Para Adumi isn't a chayk, so how can Moshe give you and I this level of connection to chayk when the bittul of the connection to chayk, when for Moshe there's no chayk, there's no such thing? Okay, we're now going to ask that question relative to what we just saw. Wait a minute. Moshe doesn't need a Veda to be shayach to this level. Moshe is shayach to this level. So then how can it be dafka to feel Moshe, that it's dafka the Veda that's shayach to Moshe that brings this about? Because Moshe doesn't need this. The same way we asked earlier about the part. We can ask the same thing now. And this is the part of the, when people talk about this mimer, they're like, there's the incredible explanation of reality that we've just learned. And now the Rebbe is going to talk about his kashrus. And it's like, beyond belief.
Just like flipped everything upside down.
Everything is been upside down in this manner. Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Wait,
Upside
Rabbi,
down.
so we're gonna have, I don't understand. We're gonna have 4 more classes?
We're going to have 3 more now. We're going to have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Because Sunday morning at 5 a.m. Bezrat Hashem. Because I
This
really...
Sunday?
This Sunday.
I'm confused.
Tisha B'Av is Tuesday.
This week?
No, today is Monday.